This is real life as well, an incredible story about the alleged double life of two former New York City detectives, decorated with medals during their long careers and now in shackles. Louis Ippolito and Stephen Caracappa are accused of being hitmen for the mob, charged with 8 murders, 5 of them allegedly committed while they were working the streets of New York. Here's CNN's Deborah Fayrick.
The story is laid out in court papers. It begins in Brooklyn around 1986. Lucchese underboss Anthony Gaspipe Casso blindly seeking revenge on members of the Gambino crime family. The rivals had shot Casso, but had failed to kill him. Casso needed help tracking down his would-be assassins. U.S. Attorney Rosalind Moskoff says detectives Louis Ippolito and Stephen Caracappa were more than willing to oblige.
Caracappa and Ippolito were paid handsomely for selling out the files of the NYPD.
Just how much? $4,000 a month, prosecutors say, with additional work costing extra. The first target, alleged Gambino associate James Heidel. Court papers say for $35,000, the two detectives kidnapped the young hood outside of a Brooklyn restaurant. They stuffed him in the trunk of a sedan, then brought him to Casso, who interrogated him, then killed him. Investigators say Ippolito and Caracappa stood guard. There was also the alleged contract killing of Gambino captain Eddie Lino. The two detectives accused of following Lino from his social club, pulling him over on the highway, then shooting him dead. A hit that put $65,000 in their pockets. The two cops are also implicated in the murder of John Gotti's bodyguard, Bobby Borriello, and the attempted murder of Gotti underboss, Sammy the Bull Gravano, who would go on to testify against Gotti. And how did the two detectives always seem to find their targets? By searching files inside NYPD headquarters, where Caracappa worked as head of the major case squad.
Ippolito and Caracappa used the confidential files of the NYPD as their personal yellow pages.
Lawyers for the two detectives believe prosecutors may be relying too heavily on the word of Casso himself or his alleged associate, Burton Kaplan.
He and Casso participated in 1 million crimes together. Right? Who knows what murders they committed together? Casso killed everybody he could find. Him and Genghis Khan have been two of the great killers of history, all right? They're probably related.
Louis Ippolito grew up around the mob, even wrote a book about it. His father, a Gambino soldier, was known as Fat the Gangster. His uncle, Jimmy the Clam, was a Gambino captain. Andrea Ippolito defended her dad on the day of his arraignment.
My father loved being a cop. He was so proud of all of the things that he did while working for the city.
Both men have pleaded not guilty, and both likely wish they were back in Las Vegas, eating at the Italian restaurant where they were enjoying a quiet meal when the feds burst in, handcuffing them and taking them away. Deborah Fayrick, CNN, New York.
On now to Chicago, a city with a storied past, a bloody past when it comes to the mob as well. A past the president appears to be catching up to. The city's vast backlog of unsolved gangland murders may have gotten smaller yesterday with the arrest of 14 people, 2 of them ex-cops. So from Chicago tonight, CNN's Jonathan Freed.
Their names could be taken for Hollywood caricatures: Joseph the Clown Lombardo, Frank the German Schweiss, and Paul the Indian Shiro. But according to a federal indictment, they're among 14 deadly serious characters at the center of organized crime in Chicago.
A bunch of murderous thugs,
says FBI Special Agent Robert Grant, including 2 ex-police officers, all charged in connection with 18 unsolved murders between 1970 and 1986. Most notably, the killings of reputed mob enforcer Tony the Ant Spilatro and his brother, whose bodies were found in an Indiana cornfield.
So how long were you a police officer?
Just a few years. That's how I worked my way through law school.
Tom Kirkpatrick heads up the Chicago Crime Commission, an independent group tracking mob activity in Chicago since the days of Al Capone and the showdown with Elliot Ness and his federal agents, the Untouchables.
You got him?
Yeah, I got him.
Since 1919, when we started keeping track, there's been 1,111 gangland slayings. Only 14 people have been convicted as a result of that. In this indictment, they're going to solve 18 murders, 18 gangland slayings, more in one indictment that's been solved in the last 87 years. That's a fantastic amount.
If they can make it stick.
If they can make it stick, but they don't go to trial unless they've got the juice.
Kirkpatrick calls the indictment a blueprint for how organized crime operates.
You've got bookmaking, you've got video poker, you've got extortion, you've got shakedowns, you've got dirty bookstores, you've got vice of every description, plus murder.
The alleged head of the Chicago outfit, as it's known, James Marcello, was among those arrested on Monday. And Kirkpatrick is convinced if all charges hold up, about a third of the mob's operations in the city will be wiped out.
It goes after the entire Chicago outfit structure, from the number one guy down to the second tier guys, down to the third tier operatives.
And he says since much of the case is built on inside informants, those left standing won't know who to trust anymore. So far,
I'd rather not comment on that.
the defendant's lawyers aren't saying much. Kirkpatrick believes, win or lose in court, the indictment is sending a chill through organized crime, with the message, you'll be caught, no matter how long it takes. Jonathan Freed, CNN.
Gianni Russo has known mobsters, written about mobsters, and as it turns out, played mobsters.
Hello, Carlo.
Yikes. Tonight, the actor and author is here to talk about what was, but likely will never be again. Nice to see you. Welcome to the program. Just as an aside, and we've run clips, it seems, on about half of them. There's always been a ton of mobster movies. Is there some charm in it all beneath the violence and the crime and the rest?
Well, I think the world finds it very sexy, obviously. I mean, Cagney made a career of it. I tried to make a career of it, and fortunately it worked. So, yeah, I mean, the mob and the appeal to the mob, as we see with The Sopranos, it always has an audience.
Why? I think the question really is, why is that? I mean, these guys, if you kind of strip away a lot of this stuff, really are just thugs.
Basically, yeah, and but I guess, you know, women find it sexy, and it's that gray area, the intrigue of it all. I mean, that's how people get lured into it also, because of the fact that
I guess they do. You've written about a lot of this stuff. The mob as it was, the mafia as it was, appears to be breaking down in part because these guys who used to be so good at keeping their mouths shut can't stop blabbing.
well, the loyalty's no longer there. And, you know, with the sophistication of electronics today, everybody's worried about themselves. So years ago, you know, you had the code of silence, and if you went to jail and did 5-year bit or a 10-year bit, your family was taken care of. When you came out, you were all right. But now with the RICO Act, fortunately, you know, these people are stripped of everything, all their assets, and if they don't make a deal, they're coming home to nothing, and it's a different world now.
Do you think if Sammy the Bull Gravano hadn't talked first, I mean, he was sort of the biggest name to start chirping early on, that the mob would still be what it was, or is there something else involved? The sort of society changed, the guys who were in the mob changed. Any thoughts there?
Well, to me, it started earlier on, because when Vincent Teresa turned on the Petriarca family, and then, as your earlier guest, I saw the clips on Henry Hill. I mean, this has been going on a while, I think, where they've escalated it now. And I think the reason Sammy turned, obviously, they played the tapes of John in the apartment upstairs and said that, you know, obviously he thought he was going to get hit.
Yeah.
And he knows how treacherous John was, so it was him or John, so he picked himself, obviously.
In the end, actually, what does seem to have happened is one mob, one gang has just been replaced by other mobs, other gangs. What was an Italian business has now become something else. So there's always a market for it somewhere.
Yeah, and as we see now with the Russian mob, I think right now is probably the most powerful because of the fear. I mean, they're treacherous. Where Italians, you know, when they organized, they only took care of the one that they needed. They didn't wipe out families like the Colombians do. So I think it's a different a totally different world. I mean, it's and again with these newcomers. I mean, I think it's disorganized crime now, not organized crime. To me, it's like it's guys are taking care of themselves in their own neighborhoods, but it's far from as organized as it used to be, as I know it.
It's certainly violent. Nice to see you. Thanks for being with us tonight.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.